Aside from WMSC, Milwaukee radio is really lacking in progressive, original radio stations. The airwaves around Milwaukee have been dominated by corporate stations with stale, uninspired playlists. Well, tucked discreetly on the left side of the dial, 88.9 Radio Milwaukee is aiming to change that. They just celebrated their first anniversary, and they're generating quite a buzz around the community. Jim Steinmetz sat down with afternoon radio personality Scott Mullins to find out how 88.9 is changing radio in Milwaukee.
There's music from Northern Room, Milwaukee's own, with We're on Fire, right here on 88.9 Radio Milwaukee. Liv Warfield in the set with ABC. We also heard something brand new from Sam Sparrow, a tune called Black and Gold, and we started off with the Pixies, and Here Comes Your Man. My name's Scott Mullins. Good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining me here at 88.9 Radio Milwaukee, where programming support comes from our contributors.
Scott, you moved to Milwaukee from Louisville. Prior to coming here, what was your perception of the music scene in Milwaukee?
I actually had a good perception of the music scene. I'm not surprised by Milwaukee's music scene. I mean, I came of age listening to the Bodines and the Violent Femmes and the Hispanic Boys, and I was aware of, De Croizen and a lot of other bands, Paul Seabar, and I was aware that Speech was from Milwaukee. So I expected a good music scene when I got here, and I haven't been disappointed.
Are there any bands right now that you're particularly excited about?
I tell you, it really is hard to pick a few, but off the top of my head, I really like the band 1956. Of course, we love Fever Marlene here at the station. They've done really well for us. I think they're incredibly talented group. Northern Room, Growing Nation, Element had a great album out last year. Off the top of my head, those are the ones that come to mind.
Since coming on the air, 88.9 has really made an effort to support local musicians. Can you explain a little bit how you've done that?
Well, the approach we're using, and it didn't happen by accident, we put a lot of thought into this, is to treat the Milwaukee artist the same way we do the national artist, if you will, and that is pick a couple of tracks and really focus on those songs. Put them into regular rotation. Give them the equal number of spins per week as the other artists. Stay on them for a while. We've received some criticism for that. Some people say, well, you're not playing enough. You could be playing more local bands. Instead of focusing on a handful of songs from 5 bands at any given time, you could be playing 15 or 20 bands. But what we're trying to do by doing that is to help these bands establish themselves and really create some local hits. Songs that people, that get familiar with and recognize. And, bands can build on that momentum. They start drawing more people. They can start making more money. They're playing in front of an audience now that recognizes their songs. When they launch into one of their songs that's been played here a lot, the crowd goes, they respond to it. So we feel like that's doing more for Milwaukee's music scene than just throwing out, every local CD that comes into the station and playing it once or twice and then moving on. I feel like it's going to do more for the local music scene if we really focus on some top quality tracks.
Also on Fridays, you host a band or a musician in the studio here for 414 Music. Mm-hmm. How has that been received?
Well, it's been great. It's called 414 Music. We started doing it not long after we went on the air, and we've had, over 40 bands and artists come through the door. We've had hip-hop acts. We've had acoustic folk groups. We've had a lot of pop rock, a lot of indie pop stuff, and it's been extremely well received. It's a lot of fun. That's in addition to playing the regular rotation tracks. We're playing local music every hour of every day, and then in addition to that, we do 414 Music, where we turn things over to a live band and do an interview session. They get to come in and perform live, and it's been a lot of fun, and the audience has responded very well.
As a non-commercial radio station, your format is really wide open. How are you deciding what music to play?
Our music selection process is fairly unique in that we include a lot of people. We don't just have one music director or program director making all the decisions. All of our on-air staff and some of our support staff bring their suggestions to the table at regular music meetings. People literally bring stuff to the table, they submit it, everybody listens to it, then we go around and we talk about what we liked and disliked and choose the ones that are going to be added. So everyone here at the station has opportunity to participate in the selection process.
88.9 recently came out with the first annual Milwaukee Music Awards. Can you talk a little bit about how the winners were picked and some of the categories?
That was a really fun undertaking. It was a lot of work. The entire staff was involved with that. Again, we came up with categories. We asked everyone to submit their nominees, and we selected 3 nominees in each category. We ended up giving awards, I think, in 18 different categories. And then we, as the on-air staff, voted for the winners. We did have several listener choice categories, and that's exactly what they were. We put them on the website. We put those categories up with the nominees, and then we had listeners vote. So those were selected by listeners. The rest were voted on by our staff. We actually had a few instances where we actually created categories, for songs that just needed an award. Like we've had this band called Certain Stars, and a song called Can You Dig It? And it's just this hard-hitting, crunchy guitar riff, and it was like, when we would play that, I'd say, God, it is such a great guitar riff. So, came up with a category called the Kick-Ass Guitar Riff of the Year. They were the winner. We did that for one or two categories. And then the rest, those were the fun categories. Then we also did Song of the Year, Album of the Year. Of course, those were voted on by everyone.
88.9's been on the air for a little bit over a year now. What has the response from the community been like?
Well, the response from the community has been overwhelming, actually. I mean, when we first went on the air, we were just, overrun with phone calls and emails, and, a lot of comments. A common theme that we would hear was, oh, thank God I can listen to the radio again. I haven't listened to my iPod since you've signed on the air. So we're getting a lot of listeners who were really disenfranchised with radio and had given up on radio. So we're pulling that audience. And we're pulling actually a pretty wide variety of people. A lot of younger listeners, a lot younger than most listener-supported stations, and we're getting some more traditional listener-supported, audience members. So it's a pretty wide variety.
If someone wants to learn more about the station, is there a website they can go to?
Well, they can always go to RadioMilwaukee.org. But the best way to learn about the radio station is to tune in and listen. And one thing I'd like to say, if you do tune in and listen, this is not a station that you can tune in, spend a few minutes, and make a quick judgment. Most stations you can do that. If you tune in a radio station and you hear a country song, well, you're on a country station. If you hear a hip-hop song, you know where you are. If you hear an oldie song, you know what you're going to hear. But if you tune into Radio Milwaukee and you hear a hip-hop song, you better hang on, because the next one might be, something from the Rolling Stones or Depeche Mode or Arcade Fire. It's just a variety of music unlike anything else, and you really need to spend some time listening to get a feel for what the station's about.
Scott, thanks a lot for taking the time to talk with us.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for coming by.
88.9 Radio Milwaukee is really a community radio station. The wide range of music they play is a direct reflection of the diversity in a city like Milwaukee. Scott Mullins and the rest of the crew at 88.9 do a great job of supporting local musicians and introducing people to music they wouldn't usually hear anywhere else on Milwaukee radio.